Hey everybody, so today we're going to talk about the Global Jihad and the war on the West by Islam. So currently this year there's been 1,054 attacks, over 6,605 fatalities, and it seems to be a correlation between higher Islamic populations and more terrorist attacks. So let's take example, the Middle East is by far the highest concentration, then there's also the Afghanistan and Pakistan areas, and then there's Al-Shabaab in Somalia, Boko Haram in Nigeria, and there's also issues in Mali, Mauritania, Niger, Burkina Faso. Also along the African coast, Istanbul in Turkey is infamous for it. Also, the West has pretty low numbers of Islamic terrorists, but you got to remember the such low populations of Islamic peoples in the United States. This is why we have low terrorism rates. Think about it. They commit about a third of terrorist acts in the United States with only 1% of the population. That's an incredible statistics and incredibly alarming. So if we have 2%, then you have 60% of the terrorists, assuming that it would scale, and I would guess it would, because in Europe, take London this year has already had around 5 terrorist attacks by Islamic terrorists, and New York has only had 1 because London's Islamic population is significantly higher. Also, you have to notice that countries with very low Islamic population in the West have nothing. So, like Poland, the Czech Republic, Slovakia, Austria-Hungary, Germany is yet to have a major terrorist attack, and I suspect that's going to change. This is just terrorism. They commit to Islamic migrants commit a lot of crime when they have high density populations, like areas of Germany, Sweden, Denmark, and Norway have experienced much larger crime rates. There's also the Islamic war going on with Russia. This is most happening in the region of Chechnya and Dagestan. This has been an ongoing conflict, but it's more of a secular conflict than an Islamic conflict. However, recent Chechnyans have been rather radicalized, like the Tsarnaev brothers that committed the Boston bombing. This is really alarming, and there's not much we can do other than stop the immigration, because if you read the Quran, there's large portions of it that can be interpreted as inherently violent, because there's things that talking about killing apostates, which is essentially the Shias. There's special things for Judaism and Christianity as they're men of the book, but however, they see Christianity as being corrupted more than it already was, because of the secular ideas, and they also hate atheism. So if you watch, there's a recent video by Sargon of Akkad who talked about this. He talked about how there's more than just the Western so-called, quote, neo-colonialism of the Middle East that they're worried about. They actually do not believe in don't hold these secular ideas that progressives so widely flaunt. I don't understand why they're defending Islam. Islam, in many cases, is really indefensible. I mean, they're throwing gays off roofs. They've chronic human rights abusers. They have massive civil wars going on right now. And it's not a good situation for the Islamic countries. The only Islamic country that doesn't have doesn't have a single terrorist attack, I believe, is Morocco. Malaysia has stuff going on right on their border with Thailand. That's it. And if you look at high concentrations of Muslims, say in the Philippines, there's also terrorism. Indonesia, less so, but mostly in the Aceh region of Sumatra, terrorism is a problem. And Islamic terrorism is a vast majority of terrorism. The other major sources, say the drug war in Latin America, that's also, I would say, lesser of an issue and more relevant to the United States. But we cannot have large groups of Islamic immigration. It'll just increase crime. They're more likely for terrorist attacks. Just look at London in Europe. They also have a huge migrant crisis going on. This is why the UK left, because Germany is, importing Muslims by the millions if they had their way. This is a huge problem. Islam is incompatible with Western values. There needs to be a reformation of Islam, or B, Islam just needs to go away, and they need to adopt more Western values. I think is the best thing to the Middle East. However, they're really against this. So, for instance, I worked at the Maine Immigrant Refugee Center here in Lewiston, Maine, and they were mostly from Somalia, Eritrea, Djibouti, parts of Ethiopia, Somaliland, and Kenya, and they are relatively moderate, the ones that are fleeing from Somalia. However, they are really opposed to integrating in Western society. They want to keep their culture, they want to keep their religion, and they seem to have intertwined them. Islam and culture seem to be synonymous with the Somali community, and I would assume this is for the rest of the Islamic world. But there is a global jihad going against the Western world in the United States. And even if we pull out of Afghanistan and Iraq, what they'll do is they'll consolidate. I don't think the secular dictators, maybe al-Assad, will survive in Syria, but that's only a temporary fix. The goal of the Islamists is to overthrow the secular dictators, and they even do not like Saudi Arabian kings or the Emirs, who are totalitarian, they're Islamist. However, they see them as corrupted by the West because they're, trading oil. They do not like this. They want to use oil to fund but they do not like that Saudi Arabia is partnering with the West. This is why I saw an article the other day that Saudi Arabia is actually has cameras in their mosque to stop, show them Islamic terrorists. So they don't even like the Saudis for cooperating. And it's not just, there's actually quite a bit of Shia terrorists, not just Sunni, in Jordan, and Israel, Lebanon, in this area, the Levant, and also Syria, and of course Iran, one of the biggest sponsors of terrorists. So this is what's one of the most pressing issues in light of the New York attack. But my one solution is not allowing more Islamic immigration. That it's not feasible. Think about it, even though it's a relatively small percentage, like 10 to 15% are considered radical Muslims, of a population of well over a billion and just slightly under 2 billion. It's hundreds of millions of potentially radical Muslims, by any standards, are not acceptable in the Western world. We need to be careful of litmus tests. So this is why we need to have citizen bans and not religious bans, which Trump's travel ban was, because this recent terrorist actually came from Uzbekistan, which is over here, and they're not known for terrorists, but they're also an Islamic country. He was homegrown and radicalized. So this is what I have to talk about on the Global Jihad. I'll probably do more videos on Islam explaining the issues with it. So thank you guys for watching today. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Have a great day.